Okay, now we're recording everything. So it's WannaC's first webinar from an idea to research projects. And I'm gonna call everyone to see if you're there with us. So Vichet Sam is there. And excuse me everyone for my pronunciation, for the name's pronunciation. Tiara, I saw you. And actually I lost you. I'm gonna check again. Yeah, actually we lost Tiara. Then we have Lei, Vuchley. Hope. Yeah, Vuchley is there. Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, you can help me doing like this. Davin Sang. I saw you too. You there, Devin? Yeah, okay, perfect, I saw you. Eloise, she's there on her phone actually. Sia is not there, and I have no news from her. So we have to keep on going. Who's breathing? Stop breathing. And T2 Trang. T2 Trang. Yes, thank you. Fu, you're connected twice, but actually you're there. Thank you. Hang's not there. Please cut your. Please, viewers, can you cut your mics if you're not speaking? Beach Lean is there. I'm gonna check again. Yeah. Please, viewers, cut your mics if you're not speaking. Somebody is breathing very hard. Dim is there too. Okay, so we're missing two person. So we have to. We began already recording. So okay, basically, welcome to everyone. And so, like I said, first thing is we're filming everything so we can share it with the people that are not there with us, are not today with us. Welcome again and congratulations. You have been selected to participate to the training. You know, next week's training in Cambodia, Phnom Penh. And today, as you know, we have 3 people with us, and they're gonna share with us their testimonies actually as researchers. Like for Xavier and for Sylvie, they're gonna present themselves later, and Laurence, who's a project manager for European funds. And I'm checking my points. So I can already say also that I'm gonna send to all of you everyone's CV, so you can know who was with us actually. And let's say Sylvie, you're going to begin, as you know. I'm gonna put you as a, I don't know who's breathing that hard. I'm gonna pass the word actually to Sylvie. I think it's May. I'm gonna cut your mic. Okay. Okay, perfect. So Sylvie, you're gonna begin. Everybody is listening, is hearing somebody breathing. Who's breathing? I don't know. I think it might be Laurence, maybe. I'm gonna cut your mic too. And Lydie, maybe. I cut all the mics. Okay, now we can hear the others. So Sylvie, back to you, and sorry. I'm gonna put you as a presenter, as a speaker.
Yes.
Perfect. So now actually you might have a small cloud on the back, on the bottom, on the left. You can push that cloud with the arrow, and put your PDF on it.
Don't find.
C'est en bas. It's just you have, if you put your
I thought you
okay, perfect.
Okay.
You push it and you share. You upload the documents. I'm answering the ones that are writing me on WhatsApp. And a colleague is just joining me. Hello, Lydie. She's interested in webinars.
Okay.
Perfect. So Sylvie, please just present yourself and you have 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nabil. So hello, everybody. I will tell you my storytelling, my Moving Delta storytelling, and to explain how I've got the idea to set up the Moving Delta project and what I did to answer to a European call for funding. So my name is Sylvie Fanchette. I'm geographer and researcher at RRD, Research Institute for Sustainable Development. So first of all, I will explain you what Moving Delta means. It's the name of my project. It means that Asian deltas as an observational and concrete research study on migration and adaptive strategy to climate change. So to set up this research project, there were 4 conditions. First of all, a long-term scientific interest for population and dynamic issues in vulnerable and highly populated deltas in Asia. Secondly, a call was supposed to be open for the H2020 European Commission entitled Human Dynamics of Climate Change. The third condition is I have several active research networks to be used to set up this project. And the fourth condition is there is a team at RRD for coaching us at the Service of European Affairs. It's Laurence. Laurence was possibly be my coach. So those 4 conditions, I will detail them. Oh. So the first condition is I have got a long-term scientific interest for population and dynamic issues in vulnerable and highly populated deltas. I made my PhD and my habilitation in geography on Nile and river deltas and on population dynamics and water management issues to understand the geopolitical and environmental condition of population densification. So the second thing is I've got a long experience of fieldwork for this for studying these issues, as I spent 2 years in Egypt on the Nile Delta, 5 years in Vietnam, 1 year in Nigeria to study the Niger Delta, and I've made some short stays in India and Bangladesh. And most of all, I've got a growing interest for climate change issues, and I know that the complexity of migration linked to climate change need a large and pluridisciplinary consortium to be addressed. The second condition it's the call. So I had the chance to receive some information on the human dynamics of climate change call in July 2017. So it means more than 1 year. And at this time, I was in the Mekong Delta to participate to the ancestor of Wa Nasi, the Journée de Tamdao, so the summer school launched by Stéphane Lagré. And the issue was on rivers and deltas in Southeast Asia. So I participated to the plenary session to present the framework of this issue on delta and very high density population issues. So for me, it was really a scientific emulation, an opportunity to go forward on Asian highly populated delta studies at stake with increasing negative climate change induced impact. So it was for me an incentive to work with physicists and modelers on pluridisciplinary project and enlarge my perspective of a human scientist. And at RRD, we have a real scientific potential to address these issues. We know each other. We have made a long stay on site in Asia. We have got a long-term partnership with Vietnamese and Asian academics and research centers. And also, we have a commitment regarding climate change issues. Sorry, okay. So the third condition is my network. To launch such a large project, pluridisciplinary project, you need to have first some network. So I had three networks to be used. First of all, an observatory of population densification in Southeast and South Asia. This observatory of population densification I set up 3 years ago, and I organized several workshops to address in a comparative way the process of population densification. And so we had workshops to work on several issues as how to share database, how to find a shared scale of analysis. We had several methodological experimentation, for example, working in by pairs on the same subject from different countries. The second network was Band-Aid project. It's a collaborative research project on Bangladesh, the Bangladesh part of Bengal Delta, on assessment of the cause of sea level rise hazard and integrate development and predictive models toward mitigation and adaptation. And so they are most of all physicists. So I integrated this project as a social scientist. And for me, it was a wonderful experience to work with physicists, hydrology, oceanographer, geomorphographer. And it was a challenge to understand each other because we don't have the same way of the same methodology, the same scale of analysis, the same way to work. And it was a wonderful experience during 3 years to participate to the workshop and to do some field work with them. It was for me the opportunity to go to Bangladesh and meet new partners and to go on the field, of course. And the third network is the RRD networks. My colleagues from physicists and from physical and social scientists. So I organized several meetings with them, and so I used their network in Europe and in Vietnam and India to go forward in my networking. The fourth condition is the participation of the Service of European Affairs of IRD. So Laurence, you will hear her. You listen to her presentation after. So I participate to several information meetings. So what is a European call? How to launch such a project? How to organize a meeting? How to focus on the impact, because European projects, you have to answer to the impact first. It's not only research and excellence. So for me, it was a very good experience to participate to this meeting, to meet other colleagues who are on the same process than I. So okay, so that are the conditions, but where to start? So the starting point for me was to improve the state of the art. So I started by the state of the art to know if there is a niche to be filled to address this very mediatic issue of climate change induced migration and adaptation strategy. There are several, hundreds of projects of research on these subjects in deltas, and so for me it was a big challenge because I don't want to do the same thing that the other, and I won't get funds if I do the same that the other. So you have to, first of all, to understand what and how the other projects are implementing and researching and addressing this question. So I use my own bibliography. For 20 years, I'm working on this subject. And after, I try to enlarge this bibliography using new keywords to address the vulnerability, the environmental migration issues, and climate change induced impact. So the second step is I try to enlarge the scope of my study in order to cope with the call, because the call is very specific to, you have to implement new strategy, new policy to mitigate the impact of climate change over our population. So it's so the new keywords are very important to understand. It's another way to make research. To do research. It's not. It was for me. It was the first time of my life I'm doing this kind of approach. So I wrote a concept note in French. I shared with my R&D colleagues, and this first round of feedback helped me to better focus the issue to be studied and the various way my partner for R&D from other discipline could address. So the second part is the network. How to enlarge and improve my network to cope with the call. So the first thing is to read really the call and understand the expected impact of an excellence. So we ask us what are the competences needed to address this call and how to reach a new partner like NGOs and social organization, because in the call they explain us that you are not only working on doing research, you have to work with new partners. So revise the concept note to better address the expected impact of the call from Europe. And so we select a lot of partners in my networks and in my R&D partner network to feed the project and discuss and exchange with them on the new draft of concept note to meet new partners. So the network of my colleagues from R&D, from Vietnam, Bangladesh, and India helped me to meet new partners in these countries. And through some partners I knew before from my previous research in India, I met new researcher I went to Kolkata, I went to Dhaka, I went to Canton, I went to Hanoi. In those three countries, very important for the projects. So we had iterative relationship between the concept note, the bibliography, and the partners, and it was to improve the concept note. Because for European project, you need a partner from Europe, partner international partners. So the one of the issue, it was to enlarge my network to European partners. At RD, we are usually we work with international partner in the places where we are affected, like Vietnam, India, or Bangladesh. But for me, I don't have any European partner in, and for this project we need three European countries. So I asked my partner from RRD and from India and Bangladesh if they have got some partners in Europe addressing issues on climate change and migration. So I had some contact from above all from my colleague from India, from Jadavpur University, and from my colleagues from RRD in the Mekong Delta. And so we had contact with German institution and think tank in Germany, in Netherlands, and in UK. So I had also the opportunity by enlarging my network through the bibliography. So I read a lot of research program, a lot of books, and I contact some of the author of these books, because I thought that it would be very interesting to have their competencies in the project. So it's like that I get in touch with the BBCS and University of Dresden in Germany, and with the University of Sussex, who is specialized on migration and climate change. So when I got all this consortium, we rewrite with a partner the concept note. I've got an assistant who is working with me, and she tried to better better focus the concept note regarding the scope on European migration agenda. So we rewrite the concept note, and after we share the concept note to all this consortium. And so we had feedback from them, and we step by step we rewrite the concept note. We went to Bonn in Germany, and to Brighton in UK to meet the new partners, European partners, and to discuss the concept note, and how we can work together, and how they could share their competencies in the project. But one of the main thing we had to do during this networking is to find funds, because we had to organize a kickoff meeting. I have to pay my assistant, and so it's very this time consuming. Activities are really expensive, and so thanks to Laurence, we could apply for some grant from the French Agency of Research, MRCI, and we got funds, 30,000 euro, to set up the research project. We apply for some seed money to RRD, and so we succeed in this step. So it means that our project have been validated by two agencies, the French Research Agency of Research and RD. So it was really a way to encourage us to go further. And that is the last step, and it occurred last week. It's the kickoff meeting, which is the beginning of the collaborative work. And we were 38 at this kickoff meeting during 3 days in my institute, and with the help of Laurence, who was really, fortunately, she was with us, because it's very challenging. It's very difficult to set up a collaborative meeting like that, because we had to address a lot of steps, a lot of issues to understand each other, and it's really you need to be really a professional. And so we have to address the complexity of the work of the team, how to define work package, and to understand, to try to see if the work package we have defined are feasible. So it's the last step we are, and it's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Sylvie. Perfect timing. So like I said, everyone, you can keep your questions or write them directly on the chat. I saw Benjamin put some questions, so he's with us. And I want to welcome Smei, Sia, and Hang. They joined us. So everyone is here, actually. And now I'm going to ask Xavier. So he's going to be the speaker now. It needs some time. Okay, so Xavier, you're the speaker. Who are you? And please feel free to put your PDF when you want.
Okay, I'm going to try to open the PDF first.
Perfect. I see Fu is on the phone. Are you talking to some friends? Fu is completely concentrated on the phone. I think he's not hearing me.
So you have to help me just a minute.
Okay. Can you go on the cloud? C'est en bas. On the bottom, à gauche, on the left. you must have a cloud.
Yes.
You can click
I
on
see.
it,
Exactly.
and this is it.
Okay.
Okay. Now you can upload your file.
I have to find it first.
Welcome back, Fu. And Benjamin is upside down. So you can see the guy who's upside down. This is Benjamin. He's in charge of the training, Benjamin Buclet, and he works totally upside down. He can manage like this. He's a magician. This is magic. You see, he has a frog in his back and he's totally upside down. Okay, Xavier, please, à toi.
Okay. Good morning, France. Good afternoon, Asia. First, I would like to thank Nabil to invite me to do this presentation. It's funny because I've been doing project for the past 20 years, and I never really made any thinking about how I was doing it or why I was doing it. So I did a lot of projects without knowing, and actually it forces me to try to understand what was the process behind doing project in science. So just to introduce myself, I'm a marine scientist, so I'm not going to explain you exactly my field and what I'm doing exactly in the project I'm doing. I try to do something more general to explain how to go from an idea to a research project. So some definition first. This is a project about science. So what is science? Science is knowledge gained from using observations and experiments. Experiment that can be your own or that of other scientists. I don't see my screen totally. And this in order to explain and to understand the world. So what are scientists? Scientists are persons that are trained to observe things, to explain the observation, to conduct experiments, to test the idea. There are persons that are applying a process that is known as the scientific method. So what is the scientific method? It's a way to solve a problem, to address a question, and to find answers on the way the world around us is functioning. So this is probably what every one of us is trying to do, actually. And this is the scientific method. So it starts, as you can see, there is no starting point, but the starting point is making observation at the top, I think. So from the observation, you think of questions, interesting questions, and you formulate some hypotheses from these questions, and you develop some testable prediction. From the prediction, you try to gather the data to test the prediction, and depending on the data you have, you see if you refine, alter, or expand, or even reject this hypothesis. And from this, you can develop theories. And this presentation, going from the idea to a research project, starts from the question and goes until the development of testable prediction. Actually, it starts not only from the question, but from the observation, I think. And the ultimate goal is to develop theories or concept, scientific concept. So what is a scientific concept? A scientific concept is a model that is explaining a natural phenomenon that can be depending, I don't know, the different field you are working on, but this is the same in ecological science, biological, physical, chemical. In every science, we use the same approach. We have to develop these scientific concepts. And this helps us to build some kind of mental representation of a given phenomenon. And this mental representation is built like a puzzle. And the shape of the puzzle, of each puzzle piece, is the initial hypothesis for a concept. And each scientific hypothesis, I mean, the shape of the puzzle piece is then assembled from fragmented knowledge from practical knowledge, technical knowledge, theoretical knowledge that we generate from the literature, from analysis, from experiments, from data, but also from your own wisdom. And this is only when the shape of the puzzle piece, I mean the hypothesis, is filled by this organized knowledge that it can be assembled to a concept puzzle like this. I mean, you take all the pieces of the puzzle and you assemble them into a 3D, if you want, concept that helps you to understand the world. So a scientist observes the world to understand the laws of nature and needs to organize them, to conceptualize them. And actually, it doesn't really matter the scale of observation or the tool you use. This is always the same approach when you do science. You assemble a concept, you assemble all this puzzle to understand some phenomenon. And actually, all the concepts begin as a hypothesis. This is a frame that is delimiting ideas to be assembled. And as more evidence is collected to support the hypothesis, more and more of the scientific community comes to accept the concept. And then from the first hypothesis, from the beginning, you develop a theory that is beginning to take shape. And only the concepts that are proven true over and over again when you test, I mean, when you do experiments, and when it becomes predictive, if you want, only these concepts are in the end accepted as scientific laws. And then you go from a world of uncontrollable world of questioning, of uncertainty, a lot of questions, to a world that is controllable, that you are certain you can master if you want. And then it's a way for us to understand the world and to predict its evolution. I mean, the world in every component, I mean. So the question is, what is the robustness of a scientific concept? Because sometimes we are intellectually lazy, and because we need to evolve in a well-defined and reassuring framework, too often we do not question the concepts that are brought by others. And actually, it's the duty of researchers to question this existing concept and not to assume that they are really scientific laws. So we should examine this puzzle from different angles to check if it's robust. So if the concept actually is robust, so if it's getting close to the stage of a scientific law, it should be predictive. That means the result obtained during experimentation, during studies, should be in line with the prediction of the concept. And then we are starting to get close from a scientific law. But often it's during a study that is built on the foundation of the concept. You develop, you have your scientific idea, you have a scientific concept, and you develop your ideas within this concept. But then you don't obtain the results from the experiment that are expected from this general concept. So this is strange. Something seems wrong. It's not in line with the prediction. So actually, it can be frustrating, but actually this is when it becomes really interesting. Because if the concept is not predictive, that means that part of it, of all of it, is wrong. And then we are forced to reconsider this concept and to test some of its components. This is where you start to have ideas. Actually, when you turn around the puzzle, this concept, when you try to start to study it, you can see that there are some, on the hidden side, you see that there are some part of it that is not completed. And this is from the question how to fill the gap, from the puzzle gap, that you develop new ideas, new hypotheses to develop your project. So the goal of project is to create new knowledge, new pieces of the puzzle to fill the knowledge gap. So how to go from the knowledge gap to a scientific idea. So you start with an observation, a question, which is the missing piece of the puzzle. So you identify a knowledge gap. You develop an idea, an hypothesis, which is the empty piece of the puzzle. which is a tentative explanation in which there are very little evidence that are available to support this concept. And then the project is a way to test this idea, this hypothesis. And it's a way to produce new knowledge. So in order to have an idea, an hypothesis that is thoughtful and scientifically, that will enhance knowledge. First, you have to have a very good knowledge, general knowledge of the overall concept you are working on, of the different complementary knowledge that have been assembled to build this concept, and you have to perfectly master your own field of science, which is not always the case actually. So the scale of your project depends on the size of the knowledge gap. When you have very simple knowledge gap, it's one piece of puzzle that is missing. So it's a small question, and solving this question should not really modify the overall concept. And sometimes you have very large knowledge gap, and addressing that can potentially modify the overall concept. So developing the project from an idea requires different steps, but the first step is to ask yourself, can I do it myself? Do I have the necessary knowledge and technical skills to address this question alone? So very often is not the case. If the question is very simple, okay, the solution is often very simple, and sometimes it doesn't require a lot of technical skill or knowledge. Sometimes you can do it alone. So it only with little technical skill and little knowledge, little manpower, and hence little money. Sometimes you can do a very small project by yourself. But often it's more complicated than that. And you need, for complex question, you need a complex solution. You obtain a complex solution, and it requires extended technical skill, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of people, manpower, and then a large amount of money. So how to go from this question? This is like to resume, how to go from a question to a project. So first, you observe from the experiment or from the literature. You don't need to do experiment. To observe this concept, you make some thinking and you try to find what is missing. And from the question, you can design your own hypothesis. Your hypothesis is the shape of these pieces of the puzzle that is missing. But then, okay, you have an idea, this is good. But before to jump into a project, you have to check very carefully the literature to see if, sometimes you miss something. Maybe the question has been answered before, or maybe you ask a wrong question. So you have to work a lot before to go from an hypothesis to a project. You have to check the state of the art of this field, and sometimes from other fields as well. So if the question seems robust and interesting, then if it's your question, you have to take the lead. Someone has to take the lead. Because every project needs a conductor. And you have to convince and assemble the required consortium. You cannot do it yourself most of the time. And then, of course, if you want to do this project, you have to find money. Sylvie has explained that it requires a lot of money just to build a project, but when you have a big consortium, you need a lot of money also. This is not part of this talk normally, but when after doing the project, let's say that you fund the money, and you have the responsibility. You have a responsibility to do the project right, because it's difficult to get the money. So when you get the money, you have to go all the way and finish properly the project, obtain the result, and report the result. Because reporting the result is a way to help other scientists to design after your own hypothesis. So the whole scientific process goes really from observation to reporting your results. And most of the time it takes very long to go from a question to a completed project. If it's very, very, very simple, and if you are lucky, lucky in getting funded, sometimes it can be 1 year, but most of the time it's much longer. So some suggestions before you go from your own idea to a project. You have to understand very well your field, and it's compulsory to make a reasonable hypothesis. So this is the first point. You have to make sure you understand your own idea by explaining it. Very often is not the case. Some people cannot explain the idea. So there is a sentence by Albert Einstein, and he said, if you cannot explain to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. It's funny because the director of my thesis, my PhD supervisor, told me that if you cannot explain it to your grandmother, that means that you don't understand it. So you have to know what has been done by other scientists. So you have to do an extended bibliographic study. You have to discuss with your colleagues. I mean, you do that just to make sure you do not reinvent the wheel. So you have to check the bibliography to make sure no one solved the question already or didn't find the piece of the puzzle without knowing where it could fit. Sometimes you find something, you don't feel it useful, but it can be useful to other scientists or other scientific field also. So actually, you may even find the answer of your own question in the result from other scientific field. Do not wait too long to develop your project if you have an idea. Why? Because very often the same question is raised at the same time by a given community. Do not strive to solve all the issue in your field. Start with small questions, answer one question at a time, and look for small advances. Exploit even the small ideas. I mean, this is the sum of the small advancement that lead to critical development and to generation of key knowledge in science. And if your initial hypothesis fails, this is great. I mean, it's not because you made something wrong. It's because it's a result by itself. It should be reported. And also sometimes it's frustrating. A failed hypothesis allows you to take some new direction in your research. And this is the frustrating part. Very often it's very long because it's very difficult to get funded. It takes a long time. So despite repeated failure, never let go your effort. I know what I'm talking about. You can try for years to get funded. And sometimes, even if it doesn't work the first time, continue, always continue. If you are convinced that it's good, that your idea is good, be very patient and continue to push your will. And I have some sentence from Lao Tzu. Some of you know Lao Tzu. And just to tell you that if you are disappointed because you have difficulty to get funded for testing your ideas, just remember that a good traveler has no fixed plan and is not intended on arriving. Success is as dangerous as failure. Hope is as hollow as fear. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and the further one goes, it's like science, the less one knows. And remember, every step is on the path. When you have an idea, continue, and the project itself, the answer itself is not really important. Just continue to look for your answers. Thank you. I hope I was not...
Thank you very much, Xavier. I'm already sure that with Sylvie and Xavier, your material has, for sure, we're gonna have a lot of questions about this. So let's pass please to Laurence. I'm gonna put you as a speaker. Trying to do this, if I can manage. Oh, I can't put you as a speaker, Laurence. Can you talk, Laurence? Yeah, I can do it. Laurence, do you hear me? Can you unmute your microphone? Can somebody talk? Maybe Xavier, can you still talk?
Yes, I can talk,
Yes.
but
Okay.
just cut my microphone before.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fu, also. I'm gonna cut the mics again. Laurence, does your mic works? I remember we had technical problems with your mics since like 2 months ago.
No,
So,
now is it
perfect.
working?
Now it's working. So okay, you're this. So like Sylvie said, Laurence is the professional, and she's going to talk to you all, and she's the speaker, so she can put her own PDF. Please, you can go on the cloud.
Okay.
I think she's uploading her documents,
Yes,
and I see some questions already rising. Thank you, Dean, for this last question. I'm gonna read them later after Laurence finished. Okay, perfect. I cut my mic. Who are you, Laurence, please?
So good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. So my name is Laurence. I work at the IRD as European Project Officer, which means that basically I support researchers and their partners in any kind of submission of project that they want to do to the European Commission particularly, and any grant of the European Commission research and innovation grant. So right now I'm just going to make some kind of presentation that will wrap up a little bit these two testimonies that we had with Sylvie and Xavier. It's some kind of also tips and advices that I will provide you, and also some of these several points that we will go through are questions that I always ask to my researchers. And if one of these questions they cannot answer it, or they don't know how to answer it, we first start in working on this, and this is the first step in making an idea a scientific project. So first, I would like you to have an overview on how an idea comes up. So there are several steps. The list is not exhaustive, and we will go through the detail of each list, of each point. But basically, what I wanted to say here is that you have some kind of push-up modalities, but also some kind of pull-up. So the push-up are the ones that come from the people that have the idea and have the willing to go any further to a project. And the pull-up modalities are more influenced by external factors. And also, I wanted to highlight that the list is also depending on the scope of creativity. If you are alone having the idea, you obviously have a wider scope of creativity, but then we will see that in the list we have less and less of creativity in the idea that we may have. So first one. So you are the case of person that you have an idea and, well, you think it's great and it's very genius, but then what shall I do with this? So the question here is that you firstly have to make sure that you have the degree of motivation that is going to help you to make sure that you will go, you will success in maturing your idea and making it a real sustainable project. Also, what you have to look into your personal life, because as Xavier said, and probably Sylvie also wanted to say that, is that a project, well, making an idea a project is very good, but it has also a lot of personal investment, and we have to always think that a project is not a one-day thing. It's sometimes a lifetime investment. Sometimes it's shorter, and I hope it's most of the time shorter. But anyway, you have also to deal with this. Also, you have to think about your scientific and personal ambitions. Do I want to do a small project because I think I only have the time and the capacity to do this, or do I want to do something wider? And in that case, I am willing to invest all my motivation and all my personal and scientific ambition in this. And finally, it sums up a little bit this first idea is what's the time that I'm ready to dedicate to my project. Because anyhow, as again, a project is something that is very consuming in terms of time and also in personal investment. So the second case that you may face is that the idea comes from a group. You are a group of colleagues or even maybe a group of friends, and then you have the feeling that together you can solve something. And this is quite good, actually. So you, as an individual, what you need to make sure first. Firstly, if the group is strong enough and mature enough to go any further, because anyway, if you're going into something, and again, it's something that asks a lot of investment, you need to make sure that the group is strong. Is the group reliable? So like this, you are sure that in a few months or in a few years, you will not be alone, taking in charge the heaviness of the project. And is the group available enough for the project? The same question as you ask for yourself. Do I have the time to dedicate to it? You have to ask it to the group. Then what you also need to make sure is that the group is complementary to respond to the project that you are going to implement or to create. Also, the best advice that I always provide is what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? To sum up, the best thing is to do a SWOT. I don't know if some of you are familiar with this. Is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You try to list each of the categories. So like this, you have an overview of your added value as a group and your weaknesses. And maybe you can also take the opportunity of creating the project in also reinforcing your group to make it even stronger, more mature, more reliable, and efficient. So these are the push factors. Now we're going to go through the pull factors that may help you to come from an idea to a scientific project. So the first one, it's simply because there are an external context that is favorizing concretizing your project. Because things are happening around you, so maybe political opportunities, also global opportunities like environmental or societal or a phenomenon that is happening right now. Founding opportunities, as said Sylvie and Xavier, money is important, and sometimes you have the right, you are at the right moment for tackling an issue, and you have the funding, the funds available for this. Or maybe also institutional opportunities. When I say institutional, is for example, the university you're working in or the research center you're working in, they maybe have a new strategy and they want to tackle something. And your competencies, it happens that your competencies are matching with these opportunities. So in that case, actually, you have some kind of help and some kind of chance sometimes. That will push you a little bit in your willing to go any further in your project. The fourth case also is that really a challenge has been identified. So it's external. For example, an epidemic has risen, or maybe there are in the agricultural field there are a plant that is invading any culture, or there is some societal issue that is faced right now. And here you have a perfect match between your skills and your availability, always. A network, if this is relevant, an issue, and the funding opportunity, but because usually when a challenge has been identified, there are money coming after that. So the questions are the same. You have to come back and can I solve the issue alone? If not, do I have a network to support me? Do I have the resources to solve this issue? They're basically the same question, but actually here it's just that maybe you never thought about this idea. Maybe you never even thought that one day you will be able to tackle something like that. And actually there are something happening right now, and probably you can help to solve it. The fifth case that you may face is also there is a gap, as Xavier well explained, is that there is a gap in a key scientific subject. You have identified it, and right now I will insist in this, and Xavier already said, is that you have to identify if you have the skills to tackle or to address the gap alone or with a network, and obviously you will need to then find your network. Usually, if there is a gap in a key scientific subject, and if the scientific community agrees with that, there might be several funding opportunities now coming from several funders. Sometimes it's easy to address because you just have to fill the hole, but sometimes it's also difficult to convince, because you have to convince your whole community, scientific community, that yes, there is a gap here and I can provide you something. And sometimes the scientific community doesn't always agree with this. Then the sixth case that you may face, and actually is the one that allows you the less creativity in your idea, but is let's say the easiest one, is that actually there are external factors that push you, that gives you the idea or gives you the project offered on a plate, as we say in France. So generally, in this case, you're never alone because there are something behind, which, for example, is the push of your institution, a new scientific strategy, and they gives you the means, the tools to mature this project. Also in your career ambition, for example, if you're working with supervisors or with PhDs, they may tell you, okay, I want to work on this, and then you go any further, and you have the opportunity to work on this project. And also sometimes it's the founder directly that gives you the money if you work on this particular case or this particular issue. And so this is why the scope of creativity is quite limited in this case. So just to sum up, tips and advices if you have an idea and how you can go to a project. So here the game is that you will have to answer yes to go any further. So you have to question yourself. There is an issue I can or I want to answer to. If you answer yes, then you go the next step. Am I surrounded by complementary skills if you cannot do it alone? If you answer yes here, then you have to ask, did I define a scope of action and a concept? If you answer yes to that, you can ask yourself, did I define the several impacts targeted? And this is quite important, as Sylvie said, and that you have to always think, why am I thinking of this project? What's the point? Because actually founders today, they ask you to have a point at the end of your project. They don't just ask you to do science because they like science. Today, your project needs to have an impact. And I believe that you will have a webinar or a training session on this.